Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today I want to talk about the recent growth of Nintendo's smaller franchises. During their investor meeting back in November, Nintendo released this slide showing the growth of 4 particular franchises that I want to discuss today. Pikmin, Kirby, Metroid, and I think the most interesting of all, Xenoblade Chronicles. Maybe it's the most interesting to me because I love Xenoblade, but still, seeing this chart was pretty eye-opening, and it was just a great thing to see because, you know, when you talk about the Switch games that have sold the most, you talk about all the Marios and the Zeldas of the world, but when you actually look at it and break it down like they did here versus the Wii U and 3DS sales of these franchises, these 4 franchises have grown exponentially during the Nintendo Switch generation, and that is just so awesome. So that's what we're talking about today. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch speculation, theories, discussion, all that fun stuff, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Alrighty people, good morning. I hope your day is going well. So this happened about a month ago. I've been waiting to make a video on it, but it is something I caught note of immediately when they had that investor presentation and I saw this slide. And it's something I've been thinking about for over a month now because I just think it is such an interesting slide seeing the growth of these 4 in particular, especially Pikmin and Xenoblade. I think those are the 2 most noteworthy here. Pikmin is something that's, I was thinking about maybe making a dedicated video on this, talking about how Pikmin is basically like the 5th Nintendo IP now, like it's the 5th big one, right? There's always been this running thing of like, okay, Nintendo has 4 big IP. It's over all of their like Tokyo stores and all that, and those are Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, and Splatoon. For several years now, pretty much the entire Switch generation, those have been kind of the 4 franchises at the forefront of like what they do with their marketing as their like general Nintendo branding. But recently, we've really seen Pikmin kind of inching its way in there, which I find so interesting because when you compare Pikmin sales numbers to those, it's not even remotely close. However, it shows a sign of confidence from Nintendo that they think Pikmin can be that. They think Pikmin could be maybe a 10 million plus seller once it finds that audience. And obviously, Pikmin 4 made great strides in you know, getting to that audience and finding that audience, and that's the best selling Pikmin game already. It was the fastest selling Pikmin game, obviously. So Pikmin is something that's is secretly like their fifth big IP at this point after Splatoon, which I think is just so great, especially when like you consider how Pikmin has been treated over the past 25 years, right? Like we had Pikmin 1 and 2 on the GameCube, then we never got one on Wii, and there was that huge gap between Pikmin 2 and 3, and then there was a huge gap between Pikmin 3 and 4. I mean, it took a long time to get Pikmin 4. Miyamoto said it was almost done in like 2015 or something like that, I believe, and a lot of people thought it would be a Wii U game, but lo and behold, it was a 2023 Nintendo Switch title. In between all that, we had Hey Pikmin, we had Pikmin Bloom on mobile. I really do think a lot of it comes from Miyamoto. I think it actually reminds me a lot of, I mean, this is a much less popular example, but I believe it's Akitoshi Kawazu at Square Enix who's just been pushing the Saga series for, you know, 30 plus years now. Even though Romancing Saga and Saga, these games don't sell all that well worldwide, this person just keeps pushing it, and it just continues to be a thing for this company. That's a much smaller example, but it reminds me of that, where Miyamoto, even when Pikmin wasn't doing all that well, he kept pushing it. I mean, Pikmin Bloom is one of, what, like 6 or 7 mobile games that Nintendo made. We never got a Zelda mobile game. We never got a Kirby mobile game, but we got a Pikmin mobile game. That's kind of crazy to think about. We got Pikmin short movies. So Pikmin is something that they obviously, even though it wasn't that big until recently, it's something they identified and were like, hey, this could be really big. The series has a lot of merch opportunities, maybe opportunities in other aspects of like animation and movies and that kind of thing, right? They have the little Pikmin hidden at the, I think it's the San Diego Zoo right now. You can find them at Nintendo World. Like, Pikmin is something that they want to integrate into like their culture, so to speak, like they did with Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Mario, and Zelda. And I think Miyamoto was really the other one pushing for that for so long. Hey, maybe fingers crossed Switch 2, maybe he'll force Star Fox into being mainstream, although I don't know if Star Fox necessarily has that same appeal. Kirby is another interesting one in that I feel like for most of us as Nintendo fans, like we already acknowledge that Kirby is already huge, right? And it's funny to see this chart, you know, comparing the sales numbers between the Wii U and 3DS, only 5.62 million copies of Kirby games were sold versus the Switch having sold over 15 million copies of Kirby games. And that's with, I think, much less Kirby games releasing, right? We've had Star Allies, I guess we had the Kirby Fighters and Dream Buffet, but really we only had 3 core titles being Kirby Star Allies, as well as Return to Dreamland Deluxe and Forgotten Land. And yeah, I guess you would count Kirby Fighters and Dream Buffet in that sale total as well, although I can't imagine those games sold all too well. So to see that difference, even though Kirby was already big, right? Like there's Kirby cafes in Japan, and there have been for years, it's just kind of crazy to see. Even when I go in the mall, like there's Kirby merch everywhere, and that's been the case for a long time. So to me, Kirby was always like a bigger franchise than everything on this list, and I mean it still is, right? 15 million sold on Switch versus the second highest being Pikmin at 7.86. But it's still funny to see that Kirby is something that they are kind of like relating to these, I would say, smaller franchises like Pikmin, like Metroid, and like Xenoblade. So it's funny to see Kirby here, even though I kind of always thought it was a higher tier above these ones. Metroid is great to see, even though this is the smallest one on this list. 5 million units sold on the Switch. You would assume it's over 5 million since they made this. I mean, it was at 4.99, so hopefully over 5 million versus less than a million on Wii U and 3DS. Now, obviously, there were no Wii U Metroid games, and then on 3DS we had Samus Returns and Federation Force. I think this might also technically count Metroid Prime Trilogy on Wii U Virtual Console, but I doubt that would have moved that many units, right? So Metroid, even with only having Dread and Metroid Prime Remastered, has seen massive growth this generation, partially just due to the fact that they actually supported the franchise and released games for it that people wanted. Metroid Dread being the fastest and best-selling Metroid game, and Metroid Prime 4 on the horizon. People always say, like, okay, can Metroid Prime 4 be the Breath of the Wild moments for the Metroid franchise? And I made videos on that as well, and I think the short answer is no. I don't think it will get anywhere near that height. However, it can be a big moment for the franchise where maybe you see Metroid Prime 4 become a 7, 8, 9, hopefully even 10 million plus seller if it's marketed right. Maybe that ties into the Switch 2 if it is a Switch 2 launch title crossing kind of thing there. That could really help it, I think, and that could be a big kind of breaking point for the Metroid franchise, open the floodgates, so to speak, and get it to a more mainstream audience. And then the final major one here that they show, and the one I'm most happy about to see here, is Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles is a niche franchise. However, when you're talking about like niche RPGs, JRPGs, Xenoblade Chronicles is, one of the more prominent series, I would say, next to Persona, right? So to see Xenoblade Chronicles at 7.17 million units versus the 3DS and Wii U era at 1.41, which, 1.41 million units, that's between Xenoblade X and Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, so not necessarily like a lot of data to go off of, right? That's only 2 games on 2 platforms that had poor install bases, because Xenoblade Chronicles 3D was exclusive to the new 3DS, so I can't imagine that sold all too well. I'd imagine, it might be like, I'm not sure what the exact split is. I don't think Xenoblade X sold over 1 million on Wii U, so you're probably looking at like, 900,000 Xenoblade X, and then 500,000 Xenoblade 3D, something like that. I could be off base there. Although I really can't imagine Xenoblade 3D did all that well. But then you have over 7 million on the Switch between, to be fair, that is many titles, right? They have Xenoblade 2, they have 2 Torna, which I would imagine they count separately, because while they're not counting download-only software, Torna did have a physical release. You have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and you have Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So 4 retail titles counted in this, 7 million copies. Of course, with Xenoblade Chronicles X coming up in the coming months. It's just great to see Xenoblade on this list, basically. It just makes me so happy to see Xenoblade here, because when you think of Kirby, you think of Metroid, you think of Pikmin. These are long-standing, long-running Nintendo franchises, even if they weren't always the most popular. Pikmin has consistently been on Nintendo fans' minds since the early 2000s. Metroid has been a thing since the 80s. Kirby is Kirby, right? Kirby's always around, doing its thing. But Xenoblade Chronicles is the newest one here, the first game releasing in 2010. So to see it already at this point on this level with these other, long-standing Nintendo franchises is just so great, and I think a great sign for the future of Xenoblade Chronicles in particular. So overall, this entire chart here just makes me so happy to see the growth of 4 of my favorite Nintendo franchises of all time. And there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about that I think kind of go hand in hand here. There were some rumors from Nash Weedle. Now, Nash Weedle, I think, is a bit dubious at best when it comes to being a source on Nintendo leaks. However, to give him his flowers, he did say like a month before Mario and Luigi Brothership was announced that there was a new Mario and Luigi game coming. So he does seem to maybe have some sources. Maybe some are right, some are wrong. A lot of what he says is like very future news that I think is hard to really validate, because we won't know until the Switch 2 is out. He said a lot of stuff regarding Switch 2. However, there were 2 rumors from him over the past couple months. Most recently, I didn't make a video on this, but he made a Leak Express post over on X here saying, Leak Express, Xenoblade will arrive in animated series formats. It would have links to video games, but it would be totally independent. The production is developed by Nintendo itself and could be destined for its own streaming platform, which we have already talked about. So this is extremely exciting to me if this is true, for 2 reasons. First of all, Xenoblade getting an anime, I think it just makes the most sense, right? Out of a lot of Nintendo's franchises, you look at like Pikmin getting short movies, you talk about maybe a Metroid movie, but when you look at that chart and how much more Xenoblade has sold, granted, that's between more titles, a Xenoblade anime just makes sense. A Fire Emblem anime just makes sense. We had one a long time ago. I think a Xenoblade anime is totally going to happen. I actually do believe this. Maybe not necessarily because it's Nash Weedle, right? I'm not taking his word as gospel, but I just do think as Nintendo has been moving more and more into multimedia kind of productions and having the synergy between movies and the theme park and all that, they're going to want to, adapt as many of their series that make sense into different forms of entertainment. And if they want to get more into anime, Xenoblade and then probably Fire Emblem certainly would fit those the best, I would say. I mean, we even had a Star Fox anime on Wii U, if you remember that, to promote Star Fox Zero. He does say it would be totally independent, but have links to the video games. I'm not quite sure what that means. Maybe it wouldn't be Klaus's story. Maybe it would be something kind of unique altogether, but it would still be probably overseen by Monolith Soft, I would assume, right? Like, they would be heavily involved with the creation of this anime and the plots and the characters within it, right? So that would be awesome. However, he also said here something about Nintendo having their own streaming platform. In the little image he included here, it says, Xenoblade Chronicles, the series, only on Nintendo TV. And I saw a lot of people saying that this does not make any sense. There's no way Nintendo makes a TV streaming platform. They don't have enough content. So this rumor was posted on November 24th. You know what Nintendo launched in October? A music streaming platform with almost no content. The fact that people think the idea of a Nintendo like movie and TV streaming application is too far-fetched is so funny to me when we literally just got a Nintendo music streaming app that has almost no content on it, that they're doling out weekly releases. Nintendo absolutely has enough content to do a similar application. Maybe not its own thing, right? Maybe not a Netflix that you subscribe to on its own, but a Nintendo streaming service that is included with Nintendo Switch Online. They totally have enough content for that. I mean, just think about, well, we're getting Mario movie. We're going to have a trilogy of Mario movies, I presume, right? We know we're getting a sequel. You're going to have the Zelda movie. You have all of like the weird 80s and 90s shows. I'm not sure if they would want to put those on there, but like you have the Pikmin short movies. You have Kirby right back at you. You might have the Xenoblade anime. Maybe you get a Fire Emblem anime. I mean, they don't need to have that much, right? They can have a pretty small little Nintendo streaming service. Maybe they get Pokemon on there. If they get Pokemon on there, then it's a done deal. That's totally worth investing in and maybe pursuing a streaming platform just of Nintendo content. And I think that is totally in line with what we've seen from Nintendo in the past decade. Theme parks, movies, music streaming platform, alarm clock, all of the sleeping applications, and then an anime or TV streaming platform. That makes so much sense for them to do. So I do think that Xenoblade Chronicles will probably get an anime, and it just goes to the idea of them growing these smaller franchises to having more widespread recognition, and it all links back to games selling better. If a Xenoblade Chronicles anime series comes out and is included with Nintendo Switch Online, people that maybe would never buy Xenoblade Chronicles will try out the anime if it's included with that, and that might get them to buy Xenoblade Chronicles 4 or whatever it might be. So I think this is a great idea. I think Nintendo's synergy that they're doing a lot recently with their multimedia properties is just fantastic, and I'm excited to see what other franchises they might, give a spin. I mean, if they actually are committed to this, and let's say they do make a Nintendo TV streaming platform that's included with Switch Online or something, could we see like an Advance Wars anime or something? Could we see something from another code or maybe a Famicom Detective Club thing? I mean, the sky's really the limit here if they have their own platform and anime doesn't cost that much to produce. They could totally do a lot of these smaller things and just try to branch them out even more, which I just think would be so exciting. We had another rumor from Nash Weedle, though, a couple of months ago that I wanted to talk about, and that is regarding a Pikmin spinoff. So this is a little bit more in line with what you expect when you're talking about Nintendo gaming rumors, right? A new game spinoff. Now, like I said, Nash Weedle did accurately leak that a new Mario and Luigi game was coming when I don't think anybody was really talking about that, so take everything he says with a grain of salt. However, this is also one that I think could totally be real. He says, Leak Express, the next Pikmin game will be a spin-off. It will stand out from the series with a new type of gameplay. It is also rumored that it could change its art style. It will be launched in the next fiscal year. Numbered titles will continue to feature classic gameplay. So the reason I like this rumor is that he actually put a time limit on it. He's saying it's releasing in the next fiscal year. This was posted back, I want to say, in July. So if this is true, we should be seeing this game probably in the next Nintendo Direct. I don't know if you launch the Switch 2 and have a Pikmin spinoff year one on Switch 2. So I would assume this is probably a Switch 1 title if it is real. And I think that's great. I think that's very exciting. I do wonder what this would be, right? I mean, continuing to grow the Pikmin franchise beyond just the numbered entries, I think is a great idea. You have Pikmin Bloom, you have the Pikmin shorts they did a long time ago. Keep expanding it, though. Maybe get some more sub-franchises going. I mean, you see so many different entries in the Zelda games and the Mario games. You have like Luigi's Mansion, you have Donkey Kong as its own thing. But like Animal Crossing, I mean, it had 2 spinoffs in 2015, but we haven't seen any Animal Crossing spinoffs since. We've never seen a Splatoon spinoff. And yeah, we got one Pikmin spinoff, but it was Hey Pikmin. It released in 2017, and frankly, it wasn't that great, and nobody really cared about it. But that doesn't mean you can't leverage spinoffs better than they have been. You know, like I said, we have great spinoffs for Mario and Zelda, but when it comes to a lot of their other franchises, it seems like they don't even really try in a lot of these cases. So if we could get like a cool Pikmin, I don't know, maybe like a Pikmin RPG or something, that would be really awesome, to be completely honest. Maybe it wouldn't be an RPG, maybe it would be some sort of action game or something else entirely, maybe a Pikmin puzzle game. I don't really know, but just expanding the types of genres that these franchises encompass to help them grow and reach even bigger audiences, I think is a great idea. So if this is true, I really can't wait to see it. And once again, I think it's just a sign that Pikmin really is another one of the big five now, as we'll call it, when it comes to Nintendo IP. So that is all I wanted to talk about today, just the growth of Nintendo's smaller franchises. Maybe by the end of the Switch 2 generation, we see some other franchises on this list. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head what franchises would really apply. I guess Fire Emblem, right? But Nintendo doesn't actually wholly own Intelligent System, so maybe that's why that's not included here. Because obviously Fire Emblem saw quite a bit of growth with Fire Emblem Three Houses this generation. But yeah, it's super interesting stuff, and I think it's great to see that these smaller franchises are growing rapidly, and I can't wait to see what the next 10 years of Nintendo beholds for them. So definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think of the growth of Pikmin, Kirby, Metroid, and Xenoblade Chronicles? What do you think of these two rumors from Nash Weedle regarding a Xenoblade anime, a Nintendo kind of streaming service, as well as a new Pikmin spinoff coming to, well, he doesn't say Nintendo Switch, he just said next fiscal year, so that could be Switch or Switch 2, I suppose. But let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo content, coverage, discussion, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and check out my other Nintendo channel at It's Amiibo for more Nintendo goodness. Until next time, folks, peace.